We're starting season 6 of the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast, and it begins with a conversation with news anchor Michelle Lee. Now, many of you may remember Michelle and I used to co-anchor the 10 o'clock news here on WECT. She's now working in St. Louis, and recently, Michelle was the target of an ugly, racist voicemail left by one of the station's viewers. When anchoring on New Year's Day, Michelle did a story on why some families have traditional foods on the first day of the year. They eat them for good health or prosperity or fortune for the entire year. Being Korean, Michelle added her own family's tradition that they had dumpling soup on New Year's Day. That resulted in the viewer's voicemail, which Michelle has helped turn into a positive movement.
She was being very Asian, and I don't know. She can keep her Korean to herself.
So it's, we're on this system, so it's, saved in an email and sent to me. And I was actually leaving a video message for one of my friends. And I was playing it, and it came over on my computer speakers, and she was like, what? She messaged me right away, like, what was that? Because as soon as I played it, I actually was like, oh, I got to go, and hung up my video message for her. And then she texted me back right away and was like, holy crap, I'm so sorry. So then I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do here. But I just played it and listened to myself playing it. And then I sat on it for a minute. I mean, more than a minute. I sat on it, and then I was like, I think I'm going to post it. I think I'm going to post it on Instagram. So that's what I did. I posted it on Instagram because then you can do the captions. And it was I didn't say anything. I just listened to it.
Right. Sunday morning you get up. What was your first inclination that, this thing is taking a life of its own?
It's just my phone. I can't even imagine what people go through. You need a Sherpa when you get viral, because my phone was just blowing up. All these notifications on Instagram and Twitter. And I was like, what is happening? And I looked at Jim, because Jim. I looked at Jim and I said, I think this is getting some traction. And Jim looked at me and he smirked, like he was like, okay, come on, who do you think you are? That kind of stuff, And so I was like, I'm serious.
You did talk to the woman who left the voicemail. What was that conversation like?
I think the best way to describe it is it's complex. So she apologized. I believe she is sincere in her apology. And I think for me, I think the thing is, race is not going to get solved in one conversation. So we did promise that we would meet up one day when it's COVID safe. And I think that's a good start. So I think that there's just some work that needs to be done. I'm not here to do all that work for her, but right. I think it just goes to show you that race and bigotry or all those things, ignorance, can be really complex. And ultimately I said, well, she's sorry, I accepted, and we can move on without her. We can say that I don't have any beef with her, and I feel very, very strongly that because of how everything worked out, I don't want her to lose her livelihood. I don't want her to lose her job. I don't want her to, have some sort of mental stress over it, because we have turned it into something positive. And she has to do some work, and I'm sure I have to do some work. So we'll just kind of move forward from there.
Now you can hear my entire conversation with former WECT anchor Michelle Lee. It's on the new episode of the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast, available right now. Free download on all the major podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And you can also click the links inside this story on WECT.com and listen there. Hello everyone, I'm Jon Evans. Welcome to Season 6 of the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast. If you work in TV news, you just have to get used to the fact that some people might not like you. They will call, they will email, and they'll tell you or tell your boss what they think you've done wrong. Well, what happened to former WECT anchor Michelle Lee recently goes way beyond that. You may remember Michelle and I used to co-anchor the 10 o'clock news here at WECT, and she now anchors for a TV station in St. Louis, close to where she grew up. On New Year's Day, Michelle did a story about traditional New Year's Day meals, why some families eat certain foods on New Year's Day to have good health or good fortune. And Michelle, being of Korean descent, shared that her family on New Year's Day eats dumplings. That led to an ugly, racist voicemail left by a viewer of the TV station, a voicemail that really hurt Michelle's feelings, a voicemail that she now calls a gift.
Hi, this evening your Asian anchor mentioned something about being Asian and Asian people eat dumplings on New Year's Day, and kind of take offense to that, because what if one of your white anchors said, well, white people eat this on New Year's Day? I don't think it was appropriate that she said that, and she was being very Asian, and I don't know, she can keep her Korean to herself.
2022 sure has taken quite a turn for you, hasn't it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right out the gate. Yeah. It was weird, John. It was so weird because, yeah, that incident happened where a woman called in to complain about me being very Asian and needing to keep my Korean to myself. And, you know, if a white anchor said that what foods they ate, they get fired, all this stuff. And then just having that turn into a viral situation has been insane. I mean, I've had calls and emails from literally all around the world. It doesn't even seem real. Like I'm living an out-of-body experience, to be honest.
Well, just to recap here, you're anchoring on New Year's Day. You do a story.
And mad about it because it's the holiday.
You do a story about some of the traditional meals on New Year's Day that people eat, whether it's pork or whether it's green beans or whether it's in your case you mentioned dumplings, and you talked about it, and then you just kind of as an aside talked about your tradition, and boy, what happened after that is just hard to believe.
Yeah, I think okay, so going back to like that actual story, you know how those stories are. It's like 20 seconds. It was a full screen. It wasn't even like, this big story. And, it was like Americans eat, like what you said, like greens for, wealth or something, prosperity, And then I did actually talk to my producer and say, I'm just going to add this line. And she was like, yeah, that's great. And so it was just an ad-libbed line. It was intentional, but I just said, oh yeah. Or I said something like, I had dumplings, because that's what a lot of Korean people do. You know me, I'm adopted. So like the Korean culture that I incorporate in my life is very intentional for our family.
Yeah.
And then also Korean people, by the way, they eat this thing called dakguk, which is like rice cakes and dumplings. So really dakguk is like the main feature. And I thought, oh man, I'm going to get my Korean card taken away. But I worked so hard for it. I'm going to get it taken away. But most of the time people do eat like, the dumplings with the rice cake. So anywho, so it was a nothing story. And actually I got a couple of emails, or not emails, but like posts on social media that were like, thank you for mentioning that. That was so cool. I heard that, my daughter's making that soup for the first time. It was just very subtle.
Right.
But then I got that voicemail.
And, those of us who have been in the business for a while, you have to grow a thick skin because especially now in social media, people are very quick to send something. I call it the enter muscles, where they think they're big and strong and they hit enter and they've done what they need to do. But this person, this woman, took the time to call your newsroom, and boy, the racist call that you got, number one, it broke my heart, because I know how much you're trying to do your culture in your entire life. But I can't fathom what it was like for you to hear those words.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, John, especially about having a thick skin. And, if you've been in the business for 10 minutes, like, okay, people are not going to like a lot of things about me, and I'm not for everybody, and you have to
all of us,
work
not
around
just
it.
you, but all
everybody.
of us. Yeah.
Right. So everybody knows, like, okay, this is just part of the business. You're in a public situation, so not saying you deserve certain criticisms, but you're going to get them, and it can be everything, like everything, your voice, your hair, or whatever. I think for me, hearing that, it was like, wow, that is shocking, because it was so, like, she was so confident about it,
right.
And it was so blatant. And when you say something, it's like, I don't know how to explain this. I think a lot of people can empathize, though, because they've probably been in a situation where you share something that's so, the word I'm looking for, crazy. Like, you share something where you're like, God, that is so crazy.
Yeah.
And people might not believe you. If I said, if I came home and I just said, man, some woman called me very Asian and told me to keep my Korean to myself, someone might go, are you sure she meant that like that? Or did you hear her right? Are you sure? I could see that people have always been in a lot of people have been in a situation like that before, where it's like so audacious. You just can't believe that is true. But when you actually heard it, that's when you go, oh, people actually believe that, and then say that, and then look up the station phone number and then call and leave a message.
Yeah.
You can see that happening as a comment on Facebook, or, a tweet or something.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take the time to look up the phone number and make the effort to leave a message, you really wanted to be heard.
Take me through your thought process now. How long was it after the newscast that you actually heard the voicemail? And then I've heard in interviews you've done, you went home, you were very emotional about it, which I can understand. When did you decide, okay, I'm going to post this? Because we all have those, I'm going to send a return email back to this person and just rip them. But then we think about it and we're like, I'm not going to fuel the fire. But when did you decide that, all right, this is what I'm going to post, and I'm going to let everybody know what was said to me?
Okay, so let me think. It was between the 6th and the 10th. So, here in the Midwest, we have a 10, not an 11. So my assignment editor sent it to me kind of just like a what in the world thing. Can you believe this? And we are now on these systems where you just send it in an email. Like, we're on I think it's called Ring Central or something. So we don't actually pick up the phone. I don't even know how to use my phone, by the way. They gave us instructions, and I'm like, wait, I just can't pick it up and call. Anyway, so it's, we're on this system. So it's, saved in an email and sent to me. And I was actually leaving a video message for one of my friends. And I was playing it, and it came over on my computer speakers, and she was like, what? Like, she messaged me right away, like, what was that? Because as soon as I played it, I actually was like, oh, I got to go, and hung up my video message for her. And then she texted me back right away and was like, holy crap, I'm so sorry. So then I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do here. But I just played it and listened to myself playing it. And then I sat on it for a minute. I mean, more than a minute. I sat on it, and then I was like, I think I'm going to post it. I think I'm going to post it on Instagram. So that's what I did. I posted it on Instagram, because then you can do the captions. And it was just, I didn't say anything. I just listened to it.
Right. And I think personally, I don't want to get away, but I think that personally, that was the beauty of it. That was the beauty of that post. How you listened to it while she was speaking. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess you can't get in trouble if you're just listening. I mean, usually. So, but that wasn't even really, I mean, I don't know how it works. Like sometimes, you know, how you think like the universe must have been guiding you some way, because, you know, it wouldn't be unlike me to say something stupid, you know, back. And it wouldn't be unlike me. Just holding my tongue is kind of a weird thing in general. So, but I just posted it. And then about that time, we were close to the 10 o'clock newscast. And so I went out on set, and I just was telling my friend and the meteorologist working that night, who co-anchors with me, his name's Jim Castillo. And I like started getting upset, and I didn't realize like how upsetting it was to me when I think I was just processing it, is what I'm trying to say. You know, like, because at first you're shocked, and then you're like processing it, and you're like, holy crap. Yeah. So I was emotional for that newscast, but I mean, I don't think anyone would have seen it. And then I went home, and I was just kind of devastated. Like, I just talked to Jim. I had already sent it to him, you know, so he was like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know, you know, I don't know. And so it was really sad and heavy. And then I went to bed, Sunday
morning, you get up. What was your first inclination that, this thing is taking a life of its own?
It's just my phone. I can't even imagine what people go through. You need a Sherpa when you get viral, because my phone was just blowing up. All these notifications on Instagram and Twitter. And I was like, what is happening? And I looked at Jim, because you know Jim. I looked at Jim and I said, I think this is getting some traction. And Jim looked at me and he smirked, like he was like, okay, come on, you know, like, who do you think you are? That kind of stuff, you know? And so I was like, I'm serious. Anyway, he disappears, you know, probably like, you know, takes a shower, goes to the bathroom, whatever. He comes out, you know, an hour, 2 hours later, I don't know, and comes to me and he's like, Michelle, Rex Chapman retweeted you. Yeah. And you know, Rex is like Mr. Twitter. Yeah. And so I was like, and then he said, I think this is gonna get big. He's like, when Rex retweets it, it's gonna get big. So then I said, what? Anyway, and so that's how, and then it actually blew up even more. Yeah. And then it's just had a life of its own. On Monday, and this is where I think you showed such grace when you went on the air and you shared your thoughts about everything that had happened since. And you talked about racism against Asian Americans. And you talked about, you know, the quote you have here in your body has absorbed 42 years of racism, discrimination, and at times actual violence. How difficult was that? You've been on the air now 20 years. You've done social media stuff. You've gone live. But that 5 or 6 minutes, was it your toughest ever? Yeah, it was taped because I didn't want to do it live. I taped it twice. I mean, just right after the other. And we used the second take because the first take, I really couldn't get through it. And then we taped it and then we did an animation and then I came out live. Okay. But I taped that commentary because I don't think I could have done it live. I really don't think I could have done it live. Yeah, it was definitely the most difficult. And I wrote it. And then I asked my special projects producer, Sonia, to look at it. And also my director of content and my news director. So they all looked at it. And I just needed that support to make sure, like, does this make sense? And they didn't change anything. It was great. I just took out little lines for time, but they didn't mean anything. You know, they were kind of throwaway lines that I had in there. So anyway, it was really tough, but because I felt so much support from my colleagues and my managers, even the corporate, like techno-corporate, some people reached out to me and I felt, I don't know, just like protected, like I couldn't do any wrong if I came from an authentic place and one that wasn't damaging to somebody else. I wasn't out to get her or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I think when I talk about the grace part, you didn't blame. You talked about how this has affected you, and you called it a gift. Whereas a lot of other people would say, "Can you believe this lady?" I mean, you had, and I keep using the word grace, because I really think truly that's how you handled it. How did the hashtag Very Asian? Whose idea was that? I know she mentioned it and everything else, but how did that all kind of develop?
Well, I think I didn't post Very Asian. So a colleague of mine or I should say colleague of ours, she's her name's Gia Vang. She is the morning anchor at the NBC affiliate in Minneapolis. She retweeted me and she talked about Hmong food, and then she wrote hashtag Very Asian. And so I was like, that sounds like a t-shirt. And she was basically like on it, she'd called me like a few hours later that night, and she and her partner had come up with like 5 Very Asian like merchandise things, a website, because he's already in that space. So they are, and they're very artsy and awesome, and they did it. They were like, we worked on a couple of designs. Like she was like, can you do this? And what do you think of this? And so I put my input in. So we were ready to go that night.
Wow.
But we also felt like we needed to make sure we had the support from our corporate. So we went to the lawyers, and all those things to make sure we could make a donation to AAJA. And we had to make sure that AAJA wanted our donation, and everyone was on board. So I think it took 2 days, and we got it on.
You mentioned a while ago that you did talk to the woman who left the voicemail. In your original post, you said, "I wish I could have said," or something like that. "I want to say something." Can you take me through? I don't want to get in where you don't want to be, but what was that conversation like?
It was good. It was also a little confusing. So I had called and left a message that night that we did the commentary, and just said, "No shame, I just want to talk to you and maybe have a conversation." So she called back, and I think the best way to describe it is it's complex. So she apologized. I believe she is sincere in her apology. And I think for me, I think the thing is, race is not going to get solved in one conversation. So we did promise that we would meet up one day when it's COVID safe. And I think that's a good start. And I actually gave her resources, if she wants to talk to other people about race, she certainly can. And she was receptive to it. I think for me, it was just, I don't believe her apology was hollow. I believe it was sincere and authentic. And I think she meant it. And I do think that there are probably other factors that are contributing to what she says, that maybe I'm not comfortable sharing, because she hasn't said anything to me, but there were just some things that didn't add up. And even when I asked her questions like, well, what did you exactly mean when you said, I was just being very Asian, or to keep my Korean to myself? And the answer she gave me also did not make any sense. Not that I have to make sense of what she's saying,
right? But
I was like, I don't know. So, and she also told me she has a history of saying some racist things. She said that she went viral once for saying something racist when President Obama was in office, and it went viral on Twitter. And I said, well, did we do a story on it? She said no. So I think that there's just some work that needs to be done. I'm not here to do all that work for her, but right. I think it just goes to show you that race and bigotry, or all those things, ignorance, can be really complex. And ultimately, I said, well, she's sorry, I accepted, and we can move on without her. We can say that I don't have any beef with her, and I feel very very strongly that because of how everything worked out, I don't want her to lose her livelihood. I don't want her to lose her job. I don't want her to, have some sort of mental stress over it, because we can we have turned it into something positive. And she has to do some work, and I'm sure I have to do some work. So we'll just kind of move forward from there.
Where do you want this to go? You've turned it into something positive. You and Gia have, turned it into something that will benefit AAJA. But where do you want this to go? Do you want it to stimulate conversations? Do you want people to have a better understanding of the racism and the attacks against Asian Americans? What would you like to see on the back end of this?
It's a really good question. I'm actually trying to figure that out now. When the hashtag really started taking off, I noticed a lot of people would say things like, I'm mixed Asian and I feel seen. Or I had messages from adoptees who said, thank you for speaking up. I felt like no one has ever said anything about me being an adoptee. Adoptees have struggled to find their voice in the AAPI community. I think people of mixed race have found it hard sometimes to be seen in the AAPI community as well. So to me, it was and then also I should say a lot of people responded with hashtags like openly Black or very Jewish, so I feel like there are a lot of people who connect with the idea of we should all really be working towards self-acceptance, self-love, because when we can love ourselves, we can love other people, really. If we carry around hate in our heart, we can't really love other people, so I'm thinking I would love for it to continue. To say that it's a movement is crazy to me, but I know other people have said that. So if it's a movement, I want to keep the momentum going. Yeah. But what does that look like? Yeah. Because so many of us don't just identify with one thing. I'm a journalist, I'm an adoptee, I'm, the mother of a mixed race child. There are all kinds of things, but I know that a lot of things in society still don't reflect my experience. It's really hard for me to find a children's book that speaks to JJ. Right. So, is there a place where, is it about curating content for people to feel self-validation? Is it a foundation that raises money for X, Y, and Z causes? People are really convincing me that this could be a real thing. So, I'm just looking at it. I've had lots of conversations with people to see if this is really something.
We've kept in touch, but I really, truly have enjoyed this hour. And I've told you before, and I'll say it again, I'm really proud of the way that you've handled this. And I'm proud to call you a close friend through everything that you have gone through since January 1st of this year.
Thank you so much, John. You're my friend, but also my mentor. We just love you and love your family. So I miss you. And it's really great to catch up. I hope we catch up more often.
I would love to do that, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you being on the podcast. Give JJ a hug for me, and give the legendary Jim Van Dillen, your other half, a high five or something too, because you've got a beautiful family and you're doing great, great things on the air and off the air. Michelle, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.